Beneath the golden sands and towering monuments of ancient Egypt lies a mystery far deeper than any tomb, an enigma that challenges everything we think we know about this ancient civilization. How did a people with no iron tools, no wheels, and no modern machinery construct monuments with such precision that they rival today's engineering standards? Could the Egyptians have possessed a forgotten knowledge? Technologies lost to time, hidden in stone, and buried under centuries of sand? This is not just a story about pyramids and pharaohs. It's a journey into the lost science of the ancients, where mystery meets possibility and history may need to be rewritten. For centuries, the story of ancient Egypt has been told through the lens of kings and gods. Pharaohs entombed in gold, temples carved with sacred symbols, and pyramids rising defiantly against the desert sky. Textbooks describe a civilization of religious devotion, monumental ambition, and cultural splendor. But beneath this familiar narrative lies a deeper, more perplexing mystery, one that has confounded engineers, archaeologists, and historians alike. How did the ancient Egyptians construct massive architectural marvels with such mathematical precision without access to modern tools or technology? Why do certain monuments exhibit evidence of high-speed drilling, laser-sharp cuts, and geometric alignments that suggest a mastery of astronomy, acoustics, and physics? Are we missing a chapter in human history? One where lost knowledge once guided the hands of ancient builders? Traditional archaeology attributes Egypt's achievements to primitive tools, manpower, and thousands of years of accumulated experience. Yet some anomalies remain unanswered, too precise, too advanced, too out of place. From the Great Pyramid's millimeter-perfect base to enigmatic stone boxes hidden deep underground, clues scattered across the Nile Valley suggest a forgotten science that once flourished under the shadow of the Sphinx. This documentary ventures beyond accepted history to explore these mysteries. Through evidence, speculation, and rediscovered wisdom, we delve into the possibility that ancient Egypt possessed not only spiritual insight, but technological mastery now buried beneath centuries of sand. Standing silent and majestic on the Giza Plateau, the Great Pyramid of Khufu has inspired awe for over 4,500 years. At first glance, it appears to be a tomb, albeit an extraordinary one, built to honor a god-king in death. But upon closer inspection, this monument raises more questions than it answers. With over 2 million limestone blocks, some weighing over 70 tons, the Great Pyramid is more than just a burial site. It is an architectural puzzle that continues to baffle modern engineers and scientists alike. The Great Pyramid's base spans over 13 acres, and yet it is almost perfectly level, within less than an inch of deviation. Each of its 4 sides aligns with astonishing accuracy to the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. This alignment isn't approximate. It is so precise that even with GPS and satellite technology, modern builders would face difficulty achieving similar results. But it's not just the orientation. The internal structure, the Grand Gallery, the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and the mysterious air shafts, suggests not only a knowledge of geometry, but also a deep understanding of physics, acoustics, and perhaps even astronomy. Mainstream archaeology teaches that these immense stones were cut with copper chisels and wooden mallets, dragged on sleds over sand, and lifted into place with massive earthen ramps. But this explanation begins to falter under scrutiny. Harder stones like granite, used in the King's Chamber and sourced from Aswan nearly 800 kilometers away, are nearly impossible to cut with copper tools. Even today, diamond-tipped blades are often required for similar precision. So how were these blocks quarried, shaped, transported, and fitted so precisely that not even a sheet of paper can be slipped between them? What was the true function of the Great Pyramid? Was it simply a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, or was it something far more complex? Some theorists, including engineers like Christopher Dunn, have proposed that the pyramid was part of an ancient energy system, a machine that harnessed the natural energy of the Earth. According to this view, the internal layout and materials used, such as granite, rich in quartz, which responds to vibrational energy, could have been chosen not for symbolism, but for function. Others point to the pyramid's mathematical relationships. Its proportions encode the value of pi, p, and the golden ratio, f. The perimeter of its base, when measured in cubits, corresponds to the circumference of the Earth. Is this coincidence or evidence of advanced geodesic knowledge? Curiously, Similar pyramid-like structures exist around the world, in Central and South America, China, and even Indonesia. Could there have been a shared ancient understanding of sacred geometry, energy, or celestial alignment? Were the Egyptians part of a broader, now-lost technological tradition? Inside the Great Pyramid, certain chambers resonate at specific frequencies. The King's Chamber, for example, produces a powerful acoustic effect when sound is introduced. Could the pyramid have been designed to channel or amplify sound? Recent experiments have shown that quartz crystals under pressure can generate electrical current, a phenomenon known as piezoelectricity. Was this ancient knowledge harnessed somehow within the structure of the pyramid? The Great Pyramid of Giza is more than a monument. It is a message carved in stone from a civilization that may have known far more than we imagine. It reflects an advanced understanding of mathematics, materials science, and possibly even energy and resonance. And yet, its builders left behind no blueprints, no detailed texts, no tools that clearly explain how it was done. What they did leave is a challenge, a silent invitation across time for us to rediscover what has been forgotten. The deeper we look, the more we are forced to ask, were the ancient Egyptians merely skilled laborers with simple tools? Or were they the heirs to a deeper, now-lost knowledge, one that still echoes faintly from the heart of the stone? Amid the vast ruins of Egypt, where colossal statues and stone temples dominate the landscape, there exists a quieter, subtler mystery, one not etched in hieroglyphs or celebrated in museum exhibitions. It lies in the stones themselves, in the strange spiral grooves cut into granite and basalt, revealing a forgotten chapter of ancient craftsmanship. These are not the grand monuments of kings, but the delicate fingerprints of a technology that has long since disappeared. The enigma of the core drill holes, first brought to modern attention by the pioneering British Egyptologist Sir William Flinders Petrie in the 19th century. These holes defy explanation through conventional methods. Found primarily in sites like Giza and Abu Rawash, they are drilled cleanly into some of the hardest stones known to man: red and black granite, diorite, and basalt. These are not the types of material that can be easily shaped with copper chisels or stone hammers. Yet here they are, holes with smooth interiors and spiral patterns that seem to indicate rotary motion at incredible speeds. Petrie, an engineer as well as an archaeologist, examined these curious features closely. He observed the markings and noted the distinct spiral grooves, signs of a powerful, controlled cutting process. To his trained eye, these weren't the result of haphazard pounding or scraping. They suggested the presence of a core drill, a tool designed to remove a cylindrical core of stone with precision. What troubled Petrie was that no such tool from the ancient world had ever been found. In modern times, the mystery has only deepened. Engineers like Christopher Dunn, with decades of experience in precision manufacturing, have studied these holes and concluded that they exhibit evidence of tool pressure and rotational speed beyond what Bronze Age technology could have achieved. The grooves are uniform, consistent, and follow a helical pattern, almost identical to the marks made by industrial diamond-tipped drills. Some cores show an advancement rate of up to 0.100 inches per revolution, a feat extremely difficult even for modern drills without immense pressure. If the ancient Egyptians were indeed responsible for these drill marks, then the tools required to create them must have been made from materials far harder than copper or even iron, materials for which there is no archaeological evidence in that era. The alternative is perhaps even more provocative: the possibility that these artifacts were not made with conventional tools at all, but with some form of lost technology, mechanical or energetic, capable of slicing through granite with ease. Skeptics argue that such marks could have been made with sand as an abrasive and simple handheld tools. But this explanation falls short when examined against the precision and depth of the cuts, particularly in hard stones that resist even modern steel. Moreover, similar drill holes appear not just in stone, but in locations that suggest a high degree of intentional engineering, deep within temple walls or in areas that would have been inaccessible to random experimentation. These holes, seemingly insignificant in the grand tapestry of Egypt's ruins, quietly undermine the mainstream narrative. They hint at a level of technological sophistication far beyond what traditional history attributes to ancient civilizations. And while no ancient blueprints or machine remnants have ever been found, the evidence is etched deeply into the rock, immune to erosion, enduring in silence. What could explain this anomaly? Were the ancient Egyptians using tools powered by unknown energy sources? Perhaps harnessing sonic vibration, electrical currents, or mechanical systems that left no physical trace? Or were they inheritors of a deeper, older knowledge, passed down from an even earlier, now lost civilization? One of the greatest mysteries of ancient Egypt is not just what was built, but how. Across the Nile Valley, colossal statues, soaring obelisks, and intricately designed temples stand as timeless reminders of a civilization that mastered stone in ways we still struggle to understand. These monuments, many weighing hundreds or even thousands of tons, were not merely symbolic or ceremonial. They were technical masterpieces. Yet when it comes to the actual methods used in their creation, history is largely silent. The construction techniques employed to move, shape, and position these massive stones have been lost to time, leaving behind only speculation and wonder. Traditional archaeology maintains that the ancient Egyptians used copper tools, stone hammers, wooden sleds, and simple levers to build their wonders. For lighter limestone blocks, this may have sufficed. But when it comes to the hard granite used in obelisks, statues, and interior chambers of the pyramids, the explanation begins to fall apart. Granite sourced from quarries in Aswan was transported hundreds of kilometers to construction sites like Giza and Karnak. The logistics alone are staggering, yet the transportation is only part of the enigma. Consider the unfinished obelisk in Aswan, a single piece of granite weighing an estimated 100 to 200 tons, abandoned mid-quarry due to a crack in the stone. If completed, it would have been the largest obelisk ever raised. Its mere existence shows that the ancient Egyptians were not only capable of envisioning such feats, they were attempting them. The surfaces of the obelisk show clear evidence of precise cutting and shaping, not with random strikes, but with controlled methods that suggest systematic planning and powerful tools. What tools, however, remains a mystery. Even more perplexing are the feats of lifting and placement. The Valley Temple near the Sphinx contains blocks weighing over 100 tons, fitted with such tight precision that modern engineers marvel at the craftsmanship. No mortar holds these stones together, only the perfection of their fit. In some cases, interlocking joints and internal angles were carved with such accuracy that only modern laser equipment can replicate them today. Some researchers suggest the use of cranes or pulley systems, yet no evidence of such devices has ever been found in ancient Egyptian sites. Others propose the use of large earthen ramps. While this could account for the elevation of stones, it does little to explain the fine placement of multi-ton blocks within millimeters of each other, or the intricate alignments with astronomical markers. Furthermore, the scale of such ramps, reaching possibly miles in length, would have left massive remnants, none of which have been conclusively identified. Alternative theories propose far more radical ideas. Could the Egyptians have used vibrational technology, such as resonant sound frequencies, to manipulate heavy stone? Ancient legends from other parts of the world, Tibet for example, speak of stones being levitated through the use of sound. Could a similar method have been known in Egypt and since forgotten? Some speculate that magnetism or anti-gravity principles may have been understood in some rudimentary way. While these ideas remain highly controversial and unproven, they highlight the sheer implausibility of traditional explanations when faced with the physical evidence. The layout of temples like those at Karnak and Luxor also shows a high degree of mathematical planning. Pillars were erected with symmetrical precision, their capitals carved at heights of over 20 meters. The ability to work at such scale with such finesse points to more than just brute strength. It suggests a level of engineering sophistication that has yet to be fully appreciated. Moreover, many of the stones appear to have been shaped in ways that defy simple mechanical force. Surfaces are polished to a mirror-like finish, corners are curved with perfect symmetry, and some cuts seem to follow three-dimensional paths that would require multi-axis movement. Something absent from all known ancient tools. The more we examine these monuments, the more they seem to whisper of a knowledge not lost by accident, but forgotten with the fading of a golden age. Perhaps the techniques were once closely guarded, known only to a priestly caste or guild of master builders, and vanished when those custodians disappeared. Or perhaps they were never Egyptian in origin to begin with, but inherited from a civilization even older, one whose existence is only hinted at in myth and legend. Deep within the temple of Hathor at Dendera, Far from the bustling tourist paths of Giza and Luxor lies one of ancient Egypt's most intriguing and controversial reliefs. Carved into the stone walls of a dark, crypt-like chamber are a series of images that have captivated the minds of historians, engineers, and alternative researchers alike. At the center of these images is an object unlike anything else in Egyptian iconography, a large bulb-shaped device with a serpent-like filament emerging from its center, supported by what appears to be a column, often identified as a Djed pillar. To some, it is simply a symbolic representation of myth. But to others, it is something far more provocative, evidence of ancient electrical technology. Known today as the Dendera light, this mysterious relief has fueled decades of speculation. Mainstream Egyptologists interpret the scene through a religious lens, suggesting it represents a symbolic story of creation or the journey of the soul through the underworld. The snake within the bulb, they argue, symbolizes cosmic energy or the rising of divine light. The Djed pillar, a recurring motif in Egyptian art, is typically associated with stability and the spine of Osiris, the god of resurrection. However, this conventional interpretation does little to explain the startling resemblance the image bears to modern electrical devices. Engineers and physicists who have examined the Dendera light drawings have pointed out their visual similarity to cathode ray tubes or arc lamps. The elongated bulb, the filament-like snake, and the presence of what could be interpreted as a power source beneath the structure suggest a technical design rather than a purely spiritual one. Some researchers propose that the ancient Egyptians may have harnessed electricity, perhaps not in the same way we use it today, but in some experimental or symbolic form. They point to the Djed pillar, often shown as supporting the bulb, as a possible electrical insulator or energy conduit. In some reliefs, figures are shown holding what appear to be cables or cords, further fueling speculation that this was not simply allegory. Adding to the intrigue is the absence of soot in many of Egypt's tombs and inner temples. These spaces, often buried deep underground and completely sealed from natural light, show no signs of the smoke residue one would expect if they had been illuminated by torches or oil lamps. Yet their walls are covered in intricate carvings and colorful paintings that would have required sustained light to produce. This absence raises a compelling question. How did the artists see what they were doing? One theory posits that the Egyptians used reflective mirrors to direct sunlight deep into these spaces. However, this idea presents its own problems. Mirrors made of polished copper or bronze would have quickly lost their effectiveness after several reflections, and the light would have diminished drastically before reaching the innermost chambers. Could the Dendera light be evidence that the Egyptians had a form of artificial lighting? Perhaps not electricity as we know it, but some other method of producing light without fire? Some have speculated that they used static electricity, generated by simple chemical reactions, or perhaps harnessed piezoelectricity, the release of energy when certain materials like quartz are compressed. It's worth noting that granite, commonly used in Egyptian monuments, contains a significant amount of quartz. Others draw parallels to the so-called Baghdad battery, a set of 2,000-year-old clay jars found in Iraq that, when filled with acidic liquid, could produce a small electric current. Though not Egyptian in origin, it demonstrates that ancient cultures may have experimented with rudimentary electricity. Still, the evidence is circumstantial. No actual light bulb, filament, wire, or generator has ever been recovered from an Egyptian site. If such technology existed, it was either far more sophisticated than we imagine, or it was deliberately hidden or lost. The Dendera light might then be a vestige, a carved memory of a technology used by the elite priesthood, kept secret from the public and taken to the grave with its guardians. Skeptics argue that interpreting the Dendera carvings as electrical devices is the product of modern bias, a case of projecting today's knowledge onto ancient art. They point out that there is no textual evidence, no inscriptions, no manuals, no references in papyri that describe anything resembling electricity. Yet the question remains, why would the Egyptians carve something so specific, so visually mechanical, in a hidden chamber of a temple? Whether metaphor or machine, the Dendera light challenges the way we view the past. It opens a doorway to a forgotten branch of knowledge, inviting us to look beyond the traditional explanations and consider the possibility that the ancients understood and perhaps utilized natural forces in ways we no longer do. Was the Dendera light a symbolic representation of divine power, or the carved blueprint of a forgotten technology? We may never know for certain, but its existence continues to illuminate one truth. The story of ancient Egypt is far from fully written, and the light it sheds reaches farther than we ever imagined. In the dusty storerooms of the National Museum of Iraq in Baghdad, an unassuming clay jar sits largely unnoticed, until you learn what it might represent. Known as the Baghdad Battery, this small artifact has challenged conventional thinking about ancient technological capabilities since its discovery in the 1930s. While not Egyptian in origin, this object, believed to date back over 2,000 years to the Parthian or Sassanid period, offers a provocative glimpse into the possibility that ancient civilizations might have experimented with electricity long before the modern era. And it raises an even bolder question. Could ancient Egypt, a civilization far older and more sophisticated in many ways, have once possessed similar or even more advanced electrical knowledge? The Baghdad Battery consists of a simple clay jar about the size of a modern handheld bottle. Inside it, archaeologists found a copper cylinder wrapped around an iron rod. Some researchers propose that if an acidic liquid such as vinegar or fermented juice were poured into the jar, it could produce a small electric charge, similar to a basic galvanic cell. Though the current generated would be weak by modern standards, the implications are staggering. An electrical device created millennia before Benjamin Franklin ever flew his kite or Thomas Edison lit a bulb. Mainstream historians have offered more conservative explanations, suggesting that the artifact could have been used for storing scrolls or as part of a simple ritual object. But those inclined toward experimental archaeology have recreated the device and confirmed its capacity to generate electricity. If the ancient Parthians, who had far fewer resources and knowledge than the Egyptians, could create such a device, it seems plausible that the Egyptians, who left behind monuments and precision engineering feats still unexplainable today, could have done the same or more. This connection reignites interest in Egypt's own puzzling artifacts and reliefs. Chief among them, the Dendera light. Could the Egyptians have used a battery-like device to power such a light? No physical batteries have ever been discovered in Egypt, but then again, few have been found elsewhere either. The materials, organic acids, copper, iron, could have easily degraded over thousands of years, leaving behind little to no trace. Some researchers go further, proposing that the Great Pyramid itself may have been part of an energetic system. The structure's inner chambers are lined with granite, rich in piezoelectric quartz crystals. The subterranean chamber sits directly atop a source of groundwater. As water flows through the bedrock beneath the pyramid, it could generate natural vibrations, perhaps enough to excite the quartz and produce an electrical charge. This speculative theory suggests that the pyramid may have functioned not merely as a tomb or symbolic structure, but as an enormous resonating machine, perhaps even a generator of wireless energy. Though it may sound like science fiction, the concept of wireless energy isn't modern. Nikola Tesla famously experimented with similar principles in the early 20th century, using towers to tap into the Earth's natural frequencies. Some theorists draw a parallel, suggesting that the ancient Egyptians may have had a far more sophisticated understanding of energy, vibration, and electromagnetic forces than we give them credit for. Skeptics remain unconvinced. They argue that there's no written evidence of electricity in any Egyptian texts, no mention of light sources, conductors, or power systems. Yet it's important to remember that much of what was once stored in Egypt's legendary libraries, especially at Alexandria, was destroyed. Fire, conquest, and time erased untold volumes of knowledge. What survives may be just a fragment of a broader scientific tradition that once existed in the ancient world. Adding further weight to this idea is the peculiar silence surrounding the exact construction and function of many Egyptian monuments. Hieroglyphic texts often focus on myth, ritual, and divine kingship. But when it comes to the actual process of building massive obelisks, temples, and pyramids, or how they may have functioned beyond ceremonial use, the records are surprisingly vague. Could this omission be deliberate? Was certain knowledge considered sacred, kept only among high priests or engineers, and never committed to public texts? If a technology like the Baghdad Battery existed elsewhere in the ancient world, perhaps Egypt too once wielded a similar tool, if not for lighting entire temples, then perhaps for electroplating, medicinal applications, or religious rituals. Copper plating on some statues, for example, shows signs of possible electrical assistance. Though this remains speculative, the role of gold in Egyptian society, its conductivity, its incorruptibility, also suggests a possible symbolic link between divine energy and physical materials. In the age of stone and sand, ancient Egypt forged not just monumental architecture and spiritual philosophy, but also a tradition of craftsmanship that revealed an extraordinary understanding of materials. While the towering pyramids and engraved tombs captivate our imagination, equally fascinating is what was taking place in the workshops hidden behind temple walls. There, in the sacred precincts reserved for the elite priesthood and artisan class, metals were smelted, objects were cast with precision, and a mysterious tradition, what would later be called alchemy, was quietly taking root. Egyptian metallurgists worked with an astonishing variety of materials, from soft gold and copper to hard iron and rare alloys. Despite lacking modern furnaces and crucibles, they achieved levels of purity and craftsmanship that remain difficult to explain. Gold, in particular, held a sacred status, not just for its luster and rarity, but for what it symbolized: divine perfection, incorruptibility, and eternal life. The golden funerary mask of Tutankhamun, for example, is not merely an artwork. It is a testament to a society that understood how to refine, shape, and alloy precious metals with almost scientific skill. What is most remarkable is the apparent absence of trial and error in many of these creations. The consistency and complexity of their metallurgy imply not a newly discovered art, but a long-practiced science. Inscriptions and carvings within temple walls depict not only gods and rituals, but also scenes of technical work. Workers smelting metals, casting statues, and using tools whose precision seems to surpass the known limits of Bronze Age technology. Even more intriguing are the accounts of divine workshops, mythological spaces where gods like Ptah or Thoth fashioned the world using sacred knowledge and tools of power. While often dismissed as allegory, these descriptions echo later traditions of alchemical transformation. Could these be metaphorical references to actual practices, ritualized, yes, but based on real experiments with matter, fire, and transformation? Egyptian texts speak of transmutation, not just of metals, but of the soul. The Emerald Tablet, attributed to the Egyptian sage Hermes Trismegistus, contains the famous line, "As above, so below." Though it was written centuries after the pyramids were built, it draws from the ancient Egyptian worldview that saw physical processes, smelting, forging, purifying, as reflections of cosmic truths. In the fusion of science and spirituality, Egypt may have pioneered the first steps toward what we now call chemistry. Some researchers have proposed that Egyptian craftsmen may have been experimenting with electroplating techniques. The thin layers of gold on some artifacts, uniform, smooth, and consistent, raise the question: could a primitive form of electrical metallurgy have been known and used in secret? Though direct evidence remains elusive, the technical results invite closer investigation. Another example lies in their use of colored glass and faience. Egyptian artisans created vibrantly colored materials that mimicked precious stones like turquoise and lapis lazuli, materials that were often rare and difficult to obtain. To achieve such vivid colors and finishes, they required precise control of temperature, chemical ratios, and timing. Faience production, in particular, demanded knowledge of silica-based glazes and mineral additives, more complex than what was typical of early Bronze Age technology. But perhaps the most esoteric and symbolic of Egypt's material sciences was its early contribution to alchemy. Egypt is often considered the birthplace of this mysterious art, and the word alchemy itself may derive from the ancient term chem, referring to the black, fertile soil of the Nile, and by extension, to the transformative process of creation. In Egypt, matter was not inert. It was alive with potential, capable of being purified, elevated, or corrupted. Every transformation, of ore into metal, sand into glass, or man into divine spirit, was seen as part of the same universal law. By the time of the Greco-Roman period, Egyptian priests and philosophers had already developed a deep and mystical science of materials. Their influence would carry forward into Hellenistic Alexandria, where scholars began recording and systematizing what would later become known as the Hermetic tradition, a fusion of Greek thought and Egyptian spiritual science that would influence medieval alchemists for centuries to come. Much of this ancient wisdom has been lost, scattered by time, conquest, and deliberate suppression. The Great Library of Alexandria, once the world's center of knowledge, is said to have held countless scrolls on metallurgy, medicine, astronomy, and the arts of transformation. Its destruction may have erased forever the technical manuals and scientific treatises that once described in detail how the Egyptians worked with matter, fire, and metal. Yet, the artifacts remain. The precision of gold inlays, the hardness of forged tools, the symmetrical perfection of ceremonial blades. All these testify to a forgotten sophistication. This was not merely craftsmanship, it was a philosophical science, a sacred technology that treated the elements of the earth as sacred, alive, and transformable. In a land where everything was carved in stone, from royal decrees to cosmic philosophies, sound may seem an unlikely tool. Yet some of the most intriguing clues about ancient Egypt's forgotten technology lie not in what can be seen, but in what can be heard. Beneath the echo of chants and rituals, a subtle yet profound possibility emerges, that the ancient Egyptians may have used sound, frequency, and vibration not only for ceremonial purposes, but as practical tools, perhaps even to move and manipulate stone itself. Long dismissed as pseudoscience, the idea of sonic or vibrational technology is slowly gaining attention from engineers, acousticians, and archaeologists willing to look beyond traditional frameworks. The core idea is simple yet revolutionary: that sound waves, when harnessed correctly, can create powerful effects on physical matter. In the case of ancient Egypt, such a technology might have been used to shape, cut, or even lift heavy stones with astonishing precision. One of the most mysterious structures that hints at this possibility is the Great Pyramid of Giza. While its massive scale and perfect alignment are often discussed, less commonly known is its unusual acoustic behavior. Inside its chambers, particularly in the King's Chamber, sounds resonate in powerful and peculiar ways. Experiments have shown that certain frequencies can trigger vibrations throughout the granite blocks, producing standing waves and tonal harmonics. These aren't coincidental. The structure appears to amplify and channel sound with purpose, like a finely tuned instrument. But the implications go even deeper. Granite contains high levels of quartz, a mineral known for its piezoelectric properties. It can generate an electric charge when subjected to mechanical stress or vibration. Some theorists suggest that the ancient Egyptians understood this, even if only intuitively, and designed the pyramid to convert vibrational energy into some form of usable power. Though speculative, such ideas become harder to dismiss in light of the pyramid's internal layout and the unexplained function of its so-called air shafts and sealed subterranean chamber. There is also growing interest in the acoustic features of Egyptian temples. In Karnak and Dendera, for example, certain sanctuaries are built with niches and chambers that resonate when sound is introduced. Some walls respond with deep, almost musical reverberations, as if the stone were alive. Could these structures have been designed to channel and amplify sacred chants, or even to alter consciousness? In the ancient world, sound was not merely symbolic. It was understood as a force capable of shaping reality, bridging the material and the divine. Then there's the question of stone transportation. How did the Egyptians move blocks weighing hundreds of tons without cranes or modern machinery? Some alternative researchers propose that sound itself may have played a role. There are ancient legends from Tibet and India that describe monks using drums and horns to levitate stones. While these accounts remain unverified, they echo the same principle. That resonant frequency can reduce the apparent weight of an object or break the bonds between matter and gravity. If the Egyptians had access to even a rudimentary form of this knowledge, it could explain how they maneuvered enormous megaliths through narrow passages, up steep inclines, and into place with microscopic precision. This isn't as far-fetched as it may sound. In the modern era, physicists have used acoustic levitation to suspend small objects using focused sound waves. Though we're far from lifting multi-ton blocks, the concept is scientifically valid. Instruments may also have been a key part of this hidden technology. Ancient depictions of tuning forks, bowls, and sistrums, musical instruments used in ritual, suggest that sound was a controlled and purposeful element in Egyptian spiritual practice. Some researchers believe these tools were not just ceremonial but functional, used to detect resonant frequencies in stone or initiate harmonic effects within temple chambers. The symbolism of vibration and harmony runs deep in Egyptian myth. The god Thoth, often associated with wisdom and magic, was said to use the spoken word to manifest reality. Creation itself, according to Egyptian cosmology, began not with matter, but with sound, the first utterance from the void. This metaphysical idea, found in many ancient traditions, might also hint at a practical understanding. That sound was not just spiritual, it was scientific. As with much of ancient Egypt's forgotten knowledge, the proof is tantalizingly elusive. We have no preserved instruction manuals or sonic devices hidden in museum basements. But we do have the structures, the temples, the pyramids, the unfinished obelisks, and we have the stone, singing softly when struck, waiting patiently for someone to listen. In the desert sands of Saqqara, just a few kilometers from the famous step pyramid of Djoser, lies one of the most enigmatic and least understood sites in all of ancient Egypt, the Serapeum. First excavated in the 19th century, the Serapeum consists of a network of long underground tunnels, carved into solid bedrock, housing massive stone boxes, each one a monolithic mystery. These sarcophagi, buried in darkness and silence, are unlike anything else found in Egypt. Carved from hard granite and diorite, they weigh up to 100 tons each, with their lids alone sometimes weighing over 30 tons. And yet, they are not just heavy, they are impossibly precise. The surfaces of these stone boxes are polished to a mirror-like finish, with internal corners and angles carved so accurately that, in many places, the margin of error is less than a millimeter. Modern machinists and engineers who have studied them are astonished. In terms of tooling and symmetry, these artifacts rival and in some aspects exceed what we can produce today with computer-aided manufacturing. The flatness of the surfaces, the uniformity of the walls, and the sharpness of the internal edges all point to a technology far beyond what is believed to have existed in ancient Egypt. Conventional Egyptology explains the Serapeum as the burial place of Apis bulls, sacred animals associated with the god Ptah. Each box is thought to have been a kind of ceremonial tomb for a mummified bull, and indeed, remnants of bull bones and inscriptions have been found within a few of them. However, this explanation raises more questions than it answers. Why were the boxes buried so deep underground in a labyrinthine system of tunnels? Why use such incredibly hard stone for animal burials? And why achieve a level of precision and polish far exceeding what was necessary for ritual purposes? Even more perplexing is the absence of any evidence showing how these massive boxes were transported and placed in their chambers. The tunnels are narrow and carved with tight turns, leaving no room for large cranes or ramps. The question is simple but profound. How were they moved, lowered, and positioned with such precision underground and thousands of years ago? Some researchers have proposed that the Serapeum was not merely a necropolis, but a technological facility, perhaps even one involving energy storage or resonance. The granite used in the boxes contains high quantities of quartz, a material known for its energetic properties. When exposed to sound or vibration, quartz can generate measurable electrical currents. Could these boxes have been part of an ancient power system? Were they used to store, modulate, or focus vibrational energy? While there is no definitive proof of this theory, the site's acoustics are peculiar. Some chambers resonate powerfully when sound is introduced, suggesting that vibration was not incidental but perhaps an integral design feature. Others have suggested that the Serapeum boxes served as resonant cavities, chambers tuned to specific frequencies that could induce altered states of consciousness, or even act as devices for communication or healing. Ancient Egyptian culture was deeply invested in the idea of sound, harmony, and vibration as metaphysical principles. The precision of the boxes could be seen as a way to control or concentrate such forces. What adds to the mystery is the near total absence of inscriptions on most of the boxes. Unlike the richly carved sarcophagi of pharaohs and nobles, the Serapeum boxes are largely bare. This absence could suggest that the artifacts predate the pharaonic era, perhaps inherited and repurposed by later dynasties who no longer understood their true origin or function. It's not the first time in Egypt's history that older structures were reused. Many temples and tombs throughout the country show signs of dynastic overprinting, where newer rulers carved their names over older ones, claiming ancient monuments as their own. Some of the Serapeum boxes are even larger than the corridors they occupy, making their placement seemingly impossible by any known means. No crane, lever, or sled system could have managed such a feat without widening the passageways themselves. This impossible geometry has led some to believe that the boxes were either constructed in situ with unknown tools or moved using means we do not yet understand. What we find in the Serapeum is more than stone. We find evidence of forgotten precision, of design that hints at purpose far beyond religious symbolism. Whether these massive boxes were storage units, vibrational chambers, resonance devices, or something else entirely, they stand as mute testimony to a civilization, or perhaps a knowledge system now lost to history. And perhaps that is the most haunting aspect of the Serapeum: its silence. These enormous granite vaults rest in the quiet dark beneath the earth, unmarked, unexplained, and untouched by time. Whatever their true function, they were not made by accident. They were the product of intelligence, planning, and mastery over materials that we have only just begun to appreciate. Were these stone boxes the remnants of ancient machines? Were they part of a system of energy, healing, or cosmic communication? Or are they evidence of a vanished chapter in human history, one that we have forgotten how to read? Whatever the answer, the Serapeum stands as one of ancient Egypt's most compelling riddles. A mechanical museum sealed in stone, waiting for us to awaken to its purpose. Long before the rise of Hippocrates in Greece or Galen in Rome, the ancient Egyptians were practicing a form of medicine so advanced it continues to astonish modern scholars. In the shadows of temples and beneath the gaze of gods carved in stone, Egyptian physicians performed surgeries, diagnosed diseases, and developed pharmacological treatments with a level of sophistication rarely acknowledged in mainstream history. This was not a primitive form of trial-and-error healing. It was a deeply structured system, rooted in observation, spiritual balance, and practical science. Yet much of this medical knowledge has been forgotten, fragmented, or dismissed as myth. Evidence of Egypt's medical prowess is found in several ancient texts, the most famous being the Ebers Papyrus and the Edwin Smith Papyrus, both dating back more than 3,500 years. These documents are more than just dusty relics. They contain detailed descriptions of medical practices, remedies, and surgical procedures. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, in particular, reads like a modern surgical manual, offering case studies on trauma injuries, diagnoses, prognoses, and treatments. It outlines procedures for treating skull fractures, spinal injuries, and even instructions for stitching wounds and applying antiseptics. The precision and clarity of the text suggest not only deep anatomical knowledge, but also a scientific approach to medicine far ahead of its time. One of the most remarkable aspects of Egyptian medicine is their understanding of the human body. Long before the invention of X-rays or modern anatomy, Egyptian doctors demonstrated familiarity with organs, blood vessels, and even the nervous system. They performed surgeries, set broken bones, drained abscesses, and conducted circumcisions, all with tools made from bronze and obsidian, materials sharp enough, in some cases, to rival surgical steel. Some mummies have been discovered with signs of successful surgeries, skulls showing evidence of trepanation, drilling into the skull, where the patient survived, and bones that were reset and healed correctly. This level of competency implies not only skilled practitioners, but also the use of anesthesia or pain management, though the exact substances used remain speculative. Egyptian texts mention sedative herbs, including mandrake and cannabis, which may have played a role in calming patients during operations. Pharmacology was another area in which ancient Egyptians excelled. The Ebers Papyrus alone lists hundreds of remedies for ailments ranging from toothaches and digestive disorders to diseases of the heart and reproductive system. They used honey as an antiseptic, garlic and onions for immune support, willow bark for pain relief, which contains salicin, a precursor to aspirin, and various resins and oils with antibacterial properties. Many of these remedies have been validated by modern science, revealing that ancient medicine was often grounded in real pharmacological effects, not just superstition. Yet, for all their clinical skill, Egyptian medicine was also deeply intertwined with spirituality. Healing was considered a holistic process, involving both the body and the soul. Disease was often attributed to spiritual imbalance or the influence of malevolent forces. As such, incantations, amulets, and rituals played a key role in the healing process. The goddess Sekhmet, for instance, was revered as a powerful healer and a bringer of plagues, representing both the cause and the cure. This spiritual medical fusion was not a contradiction for the Egyptians. To them, all things were connected, the divine and the material, the physical and the metaphysical. Physicians often held dual roles as healers and priests, trained in temple schools that preserved sacred knowledge. The temples themselves acted as centers of both worship and science, where medical texts were copied, herbs were processed, and surgeries may have been performed in sanctified spaces. One particularly enigmatic tradition in Egyptian medicine involves vibrational and sound therapy. Priests would use chants, musical instruments, and harmonic frequencies during healing rituals. While modern medicine is only beginning to explore the healing potential of sound and vibration, the ancient Egyptians may have already understood how certain frequencies affect the body and mind, especially in the treatment of mental or emotional disorders. What is perhaps most tragic is how much of this knowledge has been lost. When Egypt fell under Greek, Roman, and later Islamic rule, much of its medical tradition was absorbed, reinterpreted, or erased. The burning of libraries and suppression of priesthoods meant that countless medical treatises vanished. What survived was often repackaged through the lens of later civilizations, losing the holistic and symbolic richness that characterized the original Egyptian practice. Today, we look back at ancient Egypt's medicine with a sense of wonder and a growing sense of humility. In an age where surgery is performed by robotic arms and genomes are sequenced in hours, we still marvel at a civilization that, without microscopes or modern machines, healed the sick, mended broken bones, and developed remedies still echoed in our pharmacies. Among the many wonders of ancient Egypt, perhaps none capture the awe of modern scientists and historians more than the civilization's mastery of astronomy and mathematics. The precision with which the Egyptians aligned their monuments and organized their calendars reveals an advanced understanding of celestial movements, knowledge that remains astonishing, especially considering the era in which it was developed. This forgotten dimension of Egyptian technology not only underscores their technical expertise, but also suggests that their achievements were intimately connected to cosmic cycles and universal laws. The Great Pyramid of Giza serves as the most famous example of this celestial precision. Its four sides are aligned almost perfectly to the four cardinal points: north, south, east, and west, with an error margin of mere arc minutes, far beyond the capability of most ancient or even many modern engineers. This alignment was not accidental. It was the result of careful astronomical observation, possibly using the stars themselves as reference points. The pyramid's corners closely mirror the direction of true north, which is difficult to determine without precise measurement tools. Some researchers theorize that the Egyptians used the circumpolar stars, often called the imperishable stars, to achieve this alignment. These stars never set below the horizon and were associated with eternity and the afterlife. By tracking their movement around the celestial pole, ancient Egyptian astronomers could have established true north with remarkable accuracy. The pyramids also exhibit proportions that suggest a sophisticated grasp of mathematics. The dimensions of the Great Pyramid encode several mathematical constants, including pi and the golden ratio. Its base perimeter divided by twice its height approximates pi, while the ratio between its height and half the base length closely mirrors the golden ratio, a proportion often found in nature and associated with aesthetic beauty and structural stability. Beyond the pyramids, the Egyptian calendar demonstrates impressive astronomical awareness. It was based on a solar year of 365 days, divided into 12 months of 30 days each, plus an additional 5 epigomenal days dedicated to the gods. This calendar was remarkably accurate, closely approximating the actual length of the solar year. The Egyptians linked their calendar to the heliacal rising of Sirius, the dog star, a star whose first annual appearance just before dawn coincided with the flooding of the Nile, a critical event for agriculture and survival. The precision of Egyptian astronomy extended to their temples as well. Many sacred sites were constructed with specific celestial alignments. For example, the temple of Abu Simbel was oriented so that twice a year, the rising sun would illuminate the statues of the gods within its sanctuary. This architectural feat required not only detailed knowledge of solar cycles, but also complex mathematical calculations to integrate these cycles into stone. Even the layout of entire cities and temple complexes reveals a cosmic blueprint. The orientation of streets, walls, and monuments often corresponds to specific stars or planetary alignments, suggesting that the Egyptians viewed their urban spaces as microcosms of the heavens. This cosmic mapping reinforced the connection between the divine and the earthly, embodying a vision where human civilization mirrored celestial order. What is striking about all of this is the absence of any surviving written manual explaining the mathematical tools and techniques used. Unlike the Babylonians or Greeks, whose mathematical texts survive in some quantity, Egyptian mathematical knowledge seems to have been passed down orally or through secret teachings within priestly schools. The practical evidence, monuments, calendars, and alignments, speaks louder than words. This secrecy may explain why so much of their mathematical and astronomical knowledge was forgotten. As Egypt's political and religious institutions changed through conquest and time, the sacred knowledge embedded in stone and ritual was lost or misunderstood. Without the priesthood's guardianship, much of the nuanced science behind their construction and calendar systems vanished. As we peel back the layers of time and dust that have long obscured the story of ancient Egypt, a striking picture emerges. One of a civilization whose technological prowess, scientific knowledge, and philosophical depth continue to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. From the engineering marvels of the pyramids to the mysteries of the Serapeum's granite boxes, from the enigma of the Dendera light to the precision of their astronomical alignments, Egypt's legacy is not simply one of artistry and mythology, but of lost knowledge and forgotten technology. Were the ancient Egyptians merely skilled laborers working with primitive tools? Or were they custodians of advanced techniques and scientific principles that rival and perhaps even surpass what we believed possible in their era? The evidence suggests the latter. Their mastery of stone, metal, mathematics, medicine, and possibly energy, combined with a deep spiritual understanding, paints a picture of a society that harmonized technology and mysticism in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. Many of their technologies seem to have vanished, lost through time, conquest, and deliberate secrecy. Knowledge once encoded in temples, workshops, and sacred texts has been scattered or destroyed, leaving us to reconstruct fragments and speculate on the whole. But the precision, complexity, and scale of their achievements demand that we reconsider what it means to be advanced. It may not be only about machines or gadgets, but about a holistic understanding of nature's laws, combined with the wisdom to apply them in ways that served both practical and spiritual purposes. Ancient Egypt's forgotten technologies challenge us to rethink human history, not as a linear progression from ignorance to enlightenment, but as a complex tapestry, with lost chapters and forgotten wisdom awaiting rediscovery. They invite us to ask, what else might we have overlooked? What technologies, philosophies, or sciences of the past might inspire future innovation? Ultimately, the story of ancient Egypt is a testament to human potential, the capacity to unlock nature's secrets, to build enduring legacies, and to inspire awe across millennia. As we continue to explore and decode these mysteries, we not only honor a civilization that shaped the course of history, but also open the door to new understanding, bridging the past and future in a continuum of discovery. Ancient Egypt was more than a land of pharaohs and pyramids. It was a beacon of forgotten knowledge, a cradle of ancient science, and perhaps a lost chapter in the story of human ingenuity.